Okay, we're going to get things going, off and running. Again, welcome this evening to Padauk, Myanmar Spring. We're going to have a discussion on this very, very wonderful moving film. My name is Tim DeRoche. I'm from World Oregon, based here in Portland, Oregon. And on behalf of Never Again Coalition and the Holocaust and Genocide Studies Project at Portland State University, I would love to welcome you to this evening. I'm going to just say a few things, do some short intros, and then get out of the way because we've got an incredible panel of individuals who can shed far more light on this situation than I can this evening. Again, this is a program of World Oregon, Never Again Coalition, and the Holocaust and Genocide Studies Project at Portland State University. And I want to thank everyone who could be part of tonight's program. And if you are curious about other programs that World Oregon does, you can find them at worldoregon.org. And what I'd like to do is just do some really brief introductions on our panelists this evening. I will put a link to the event on the website so you can get their full bios if you're interested. But I'm going to start off by introducing Nant, who appears in Padauk, Myanmar Spring, who is a young first-time protester. And through her, in the film, we meet three human rights activists whose lives have been turned upside down by the coup. If you've watched the film, you followed it. It was extremely moving. As the protest, you saw how she came to understand the truth of the brutal regime that has continued to wage war against its own people for decades. It's a big honor to have her here with us this evening. Wai Wai Nu is a Burmese Rohingya activist, former political prisoner, and founder of the Women's Peace Network, Arakan, and Justice for Women. She is the recipient of several awards and was named one of the top 100 global thinkers by Foreign Policy magazine in 2015, and one of the next generation leaders by Time magazine in 2017. Jan Jan Maran is a first generation Kachin American student majoring in global affairs at George Mason University. She previously served as co-lead of the Burma Committee for STAND, the student-led movement to end mass atrocities. And she is currently serving as the social media manager for Kachin Alliance, Burma policy lead for Action Corps, and is co-founder of the global movement for Myanmar democracy. And our moderator this evening is Kenneth Wong. Kenneth is the author of A Prayer for Burma. His short stories and essays have appeared in Grain, AGNI, and San Francisco Chronicle magazines. He is one of the narrators for the films They Call It Myanmar and the film that we were discussing tonight, Padauk, Myanmar Spring. Kenneth teaches a course on Introductory Burmese at UC Berkeley, which I understand he just finished teaching moments before we started this. And also joining us are the directors of the film. Jeanne Hallacy has lived and worked in Southeast Asia for 25 years, producing and directing documentary films about human rights and social justice issues. Her films, including Mother, Daughter, Sister, Sitwe, This Kind of Love, and Into the Current, as well as tonight's film, are used as educational and advocacy tools by civil society and educational institutions. She is also the director of Inside Out, digital media project for youth in conflict-affected areas. And Hallacy and Ghilezan has been passionate about social justice activism, providing a voice for the voiceless since his days working at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva in the mid-2000s. A longtime student of Burmese politics and history, Hallacy jumped into the fray in 2017 when he visited Northern Rakhine State to learn more about the Rohingya. Since then, he has been to the refugee camps in Bangladesh twice, including as a producer on the production of Mother, Daughter, Sister, and he has lived in Yangon since 2018. And with that, Kenneth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for
Actually,
all
I'm sorry. You know what? Let me pull that back. Actually, we're going to have Jeanne and Hallacy start things off, and then it's your turn.
That sounds right. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here and continuing our what is now getting to be a longer term relationship that we've established with the Never Again Coalition and all the vital work that they've been doing on Burma also called Myanmar. I'm an older Crow who's been working there for a long time, so I still refer to it as Burma, but we'd like to thank, again, World Oregon and Never Again Coalition and Professor Amanda at Portland State for hosting us. I was requested before we begin tonight to give a short acknowledgement that the organizers wanted to state, and they asked me to read it for them. And it is to share a technology acknowledgement as a small yet important step toward ensuring a culture of respect, truth, and accountability in our communities. Because we are all here as an online event, we would like to acknowledge that our organizers, panelists, and you, the audience members, are only able to participate in this program by using devices that contain in their essential components tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold, also known as conflict minerals. Fueled by corporate greed, consumer demand, government policies, and inaction by the international community, the extraction from the earth and sale of conflict minerals has motivated and perpetuated armed conflict and contributed to societal instability, rape, and other forms of extreme violence, particularly in DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are grateful for the means of connection and communication that rely on these precious resources and affirm our commitment to use them to advocate for social change and peace. So that was a statement the organizers asked me to share at the start. Quite interesting, and certainly one that would resonate. I'm going to be very brief. I'm so very delighted and honored to have our colleagues from Burma, Myanmar with us, who are outstanding voices that have been in the vanguard of the struggle for democracy and human rights for many years. This film, Padauk, Myanmar Spring, was a collaboration made by Kurana Productions. We are a small nonprofit production team that has both people who live in the United States, as well as our team who remain in Burma, but who were not acknowledged in the film for security reasons. And everything that we do is in partnership with various NGOs that work on the issues that are presented in our film. I hope that all of you who are joining us tonight have had a chance to view it. And if you don't, we have extended the link so you can see it through tomorrow evening, I believe, or Saturday morning. And while the film is a chronicle of the remarkable events that unfolded with the mass protest movement, the likes of which we have not seen in its numbers and its vast participation, we hope that you were able to extract the core message of the film. So it is beyond just the documentation of events, but the core message of the film, as told through our protagonist and panelist tonight, Nant, a young activist, was the awakening of consciousness of a generation of young people in Myanmar, referred to as Gen Z or Gen Y, who many of whom had heretofore not had a clear understanding of the heinous human rights abuses that the military in Myanmar have been carrying out with impunity for decades. Most importantly, we can say that people like Nant never used the word Rohingya before. The word Rohingya, even the use of the word, was considered a dirty word for young people. People were not even able to openly speak about the crimes against humanity about the Rohingya, and it created an outpouring of hatred, divisiveness, and violence that extended beyond the Rohingya communities, even to Muslim communities. And this same type of divisiveness and oppression has been experienced by the ethnic nationalities throughout Myanmar, again, for decades. So the message of the film was that through Nant's journey and the encounters that she had, and as well as the other protagonists who she met, they themselves revealed that they had lacked an understanding of the severity of the situation faced by their brothers and sisters in Burma. That includes the Rohingya, the Kachin, the Chin, the Shan, the Karenni, and the Karen. And so the key message that we hope you'll take away is that if there is going to be sustainable peace in Burma, that peace must also come with security. And that can only be achieved by a true and holistic awakening, where politics and information is seen through a prism of information that's based on truth and facts and compassion for our fellow human beings. Thank you so much.
Just say a few words about how the idea of the film came about. Unlike other films that we've worked on and that Jeanne has done over the years, this film was much more organic in a sense of we had to, well, we didn't start with the idea that we would make a film. We just, Nant and I lived in downtown Yangon, and to clarify, we no longer live in Yangon. Of course, we had to escape essentially in the beginning of March. But we just went into the streets with our neighbors, no idea what was happening. And from day one, we started filming. About a week into it, we linked up with Jeanne and Greg and started talking about there's this amazing protest movement that's happening. All of these taboos are now being spoken of openly. And as Jeanne has mentioned, it was the first time that people were openly acknowledging what happened to the Rohingya. People were openly calling the Rohingya their brothers and sisters, which was a very moving and for me, who had lived in Myanmar and was so close to the ground, it was a very pleasant surprise to see that. And we thought, how can we capture what's happening here, and especially the message of what is happening here on the streets. We were very lucky that we were introduced through some of our Berkeley Burmese community friends to Mount Songkhla. The other two protagonists, Zaw and Yinye, we met by just joining protests. We really liked Zaw and his group energy, so we followed them around the city. We marched with Mount Songkhla for 5-6 miles a day under the scorching sun, and we met Yinye because she was the main organizer of the Ledam protest, which was the second major center of protest in Yangon. And we hosted all of them. We provided a secure place for them to stay when they needed to stay. And so our friendship really grew through spending so much time together during these weeks. And what I constantly kept promising to all of them who trusted us with not just their public moments, but also their private moments. What I always promised to them was, we will be your voice. We will not let this die out. There's a news cycle, and we all know that unfortunately by now, the events in Myanmar are not so prominent in the American news cycle, to put it mildly. But we promise them that we will continue to promote their cause and tell the world what is happening. And so I just want to thank you very much for organizing this panel and for providing us with the opportunity to keep our promise.
Great. Thank you very much, Raris. Thank you very much. I believe that at this point, Nant is going to also join us as well. So I'm going to wait for Nant for a minute. And everybody, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Kenneth Wong, and I've been asked to moderate this panel here. So my job is to stir up conversation and then invite the audience to join the conversation. Let me go ahead and start with you, Nant. Nant, I hope you're doing okay. The movie, of course, centered around you for the most part. So Nant, this is a question that probably most people ask you after watching the film. So I'm going to start with you if I can, Nant. Nant, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So could you give us perhaps an update on the activists that we met in the film, Zaw and Yin and Maung Sao Ka. As much as you can tell us without jeopardizing their safety, tell us about what they are doing and where they are now, and if they are safe.
I just talked with Zaw like this morning, and then maybe he was already asleep. He was saying that he wants to go to the jungle, and then he wants to join Mao Sangka or something like that. I was talking, so he's like planning to go join them. But another one, Yin Yang, the human rights activist, she is in her place, and then she is just doing like helping the prisoner ladies and something like that. She's trying, and she's safe for now. But Go Ka, the poet, the guy, I cannot reach out him because he couldn't have like good connection to talk with us like oftenly. So I have no like contact with him at the moment. But we stay like, you know, have sometimes we talk. But and also me and my husband Radish, we donated some donation to Mang Sang Ka to support their effort, to support their, you know, PDF young people. Yes, that's my update from for the activists, 3 activists in our film.
Very good. Thank you very much. PDF, of course, for clarity, is People's Defense Force. That's the defense arm that has been formed by the anti-coup movement that is led by the National Unity Government, also known as the NUG. For now, if I may turn to you, Jeanne Jeanne, people talk about what we have saw in the film Padauk, and in fact, in the film Padauk itself, the term Gen Z is very prominently featured. People talk about this Burmese Spring Revolution as Gen Z's fight. What do you think about that? What do you think about that characterization? Does the activists from the Gen Z different from the 88 generation activists in some way? Is their struggle different from the previous struggle?
Great question. Yes, I think absolutely this is Gen Z's fight, as it has been said. But I guess it's everyone's fight too. You know, it's not only limited to Gen Z, but it's more so everyone from the 88 generation till now. Of course, there are stark differences between these 2 generations. Gen Z is definitely like living in this time era, so they are much more tech savvy. They have a lot of access to all these other platforms and whatnot to be able to spread and raise awareness. It's much more different from the time that student activists were operating back in 1988. But I guess, yeah, the intentions may also have changed a bit more. Like now there's, you know, as we also mentioned earlier, more talk about inclusivity, you know, and really accepting and acknowledging the Rohingya for just who they are, you know, as human beings, also sharing the same country. So I would say Gen Z is definitely more open-minded in that regard. There are definitely some sort of challenges also going on, you know, in the advocacy space as usual. You know, it's bound to happen. Generational gaps lead to some sort of miscommunication sometimes, but for the most part, my personal experience has been pretty well. You know, with a lot of the elder activists, they've been really happy to see Gen Z young people step up in this fight alongside them. And yeah, some people are just really thrilled in general just to see leadership happening, you know, at this time. And for myself, you know, for people who are outside of the country, diaspora activists, especially, like this is a way of us, it's like a form of identity processing also, just identity formation. We see ourselves really joining in this fight so that we can better also connect to our roots, you know, and not be like too detached from what's happening in our home countries. This is a place where a lot of our parents come from, so it only makes sense to really make use of this privilege, you know, like it's a huge privilege. Just to be able to make use of it is the thing that we are realizing is the best thing to do at this time to really address the situations that are happening on the ground right now.
Very good, thank you. Let me bring you into the conversation, Wai Wai. I've known you and I've had the pleasure of knowing something about your personal history. So I understand this, of course, that you actually, you and your family both personally suffered. You have firsthand experiences of persecution at the hands of the previous military regime, that sort of kickstarted the transition to civilian, quasi-civilian rule in 2011. But now you look at Myung Hlaing, the defense chief, and the gang that is supporting him. Are we dealing with the same institution trying the same old approaches, or are we dealing with a new group that has grown much more lethal, much more ruthless, much more cunning? What's your characterization?
Thank you, Kenneth. This is a wonderful question. So, authoritarianism in general, military dictatorship in general is repressive in nature, right? However, Burmese military was known for their brutal behaviors, historic record of brutalities against the civilian or people of Burma for decades, since 1962. So I grew up, as you said, I grew up under previous military dictatorship. So my childhood was in early 1990s, and I understand from the very young age how repressive the Burmese military was. I was just like, 4 or 5 years old when my father was taken away in front of me brutally by the police and locked up for several months. And I grew up with this image of my father being taken away in front of me, and it still traumatized me. And I remember that we had no freedom of expressions. We cannot even use the word to democracy or human rights or Do Aung San Suu Kyi. And we had no freedom of informations or access to informations. We cannot even listen news like the international news or radio, and we can be caught up or be arrested. And there was no freedom. Every single activities has been monitored. There was no freedom at all. And when I was 18, I was arrested along with my family, my father, and the rest of the family members, and sentenced to 17 years at the age of 18, just barely 18. That was extremely cruel to young person to be treated as criminal and being sentenced to such a long imprisonment for doing nothing. I thought no young people should face similar situations. Now, we had 10 years of so-called political opening, and there was a lot of mistake that I believe has taken us to this military coup. One of the biggest mistake that the leaders in democratic leaders in Myanmar and international community has made was the impunity that for the military, for their past crimes, they were not just only repressive against the people, but they committed so many the human rights, serious human rights violations against the ethnic community, against students before 2010 political reform. And all of these violations, serious human rights violations, were given immune or given impunity for those past crimes, and there was no transitional justice processes. There were no accountability and no no justice at all for this crime. I think that is the main reason that the military has the military institutions in Myanmar has become stronger in terms of their brutalities, cruel. They become more cruel and more brutal against than ever before. We had repressions, human rights violations, serious human rights violations, but when you track their record, they become more and more cruel, as they enjoy impunities for decades. Now, this is the same institutions, but it's a more sophisticated one, more ruthless, more cruel than ever. Why? Because they enjoyed impunity and they continue to enjoy impunity. Now you see within this 8 months, they detained almost 10,000 people. It is individuals. These are daughters, sons, and family, parents of people, human beings. And they kill over 1,000 people. And the way, the tactic that they've been using against the people is in nature widespread and systematic. They are systematically killing and arresting people for exercising their freedom of expression. And that's why I say they become more cruel, more brutal than ever. And this is very, very dangerous.
I see your point, because it seems like they have learned the wrong kind of lesson, because they learned the lesson that they can get away with it.
Yes. Yes, they feel like, yes, we can continue to repress and we will get away from here. And we will do everything, every means possible to control the country. And we will be able to get away from here too. So that's what the message that they have. And that has to be stopped.
That's right. So it seems like right now maybe a good opportunity for the international community to actually at least teach them the one correct lesson, which is holding them accountable for it.
Yeah.
Nant, can I call you back online, Nant, if you're with us? I want to ask you about your personal experience here, Nant. I wonder how this military coup changed you as a person. You were a young person before February of 2020. You were just a young person going around doing your studying, once in a while watching movie and hanging out with your friends, and suddenly this happened. How does it change you? How does it change your worldview or your political point of views? You're still on mute, Nant.
For me personally, I really didn't care about any political stuff before this until this military coup happened, like February 1st. I was just enjoying. I was just like trying to improve, and then dreaming about my future. And then also at the time, I just got married, and then I was like planning to have my wedding event. So I was just like happy girl and things like that. But I also had little like information about political stuff. So, but all those little information that I knew for my entire life, those were misinformation from the military people. We believed them, like, and also like because the news on the television, we didn't like think like deeply. We also didn't like trying to understand really. So I had information, but those are misinformation. And then I used to argue with some kind of my like Chin friends, and then Chin friends, I couldn't understand what they were like talking about this political stuff. I couldn't understand really well, but why you guys talking about this political stuff? You guys are young, let's enjoy, you know. I couldn't understand. Now I understand, like I truly understand their feeling, their like their understanding, their knowledge. This could make me like improve my knowledge. And then I think including me and the rest of the young people, this is a good opportunity to learn how to cherish each other, and how to open your mind and like open your ears, you know, to love each other, like to cherish each other, to all the people who wants like peace and then justice and democracy, like freedom. Then we need to love each other. This is a good opportunity to learn this kind of this struggling, you know, like, and yeah, including Rohingya friends. Before this coup happened, like we never talk about Rohingya friends and Rohingya family, Rohingya sister and brother. We never talk about it because this is kind of like Jeanne said, is a dirty words to talk about it. No one dared to talk about it. So this coup really teach me to become adult, and then to open my eyes and, you know, everything.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Jan Jan, Wai Wai has just talked about the importance of holding the military as an institution accountable for what they have been doing. Do you feel like the regional blocs like ASEAN or the international communities like the UN of our own country, the US for that matter, do you feel like we have done enough? Do you feel like there are things that other things that we should be doing? And let me also invite the audience as well. If you have any comments or if you have any questions for the panelists or in general about the movie, feel free to type them in because we would like you to be part of the conversation. Jeanne Jeanne?
Yeah, my answer to that would be no. The US, the ASEAN international community is not doing anything enough as to what they should be able to do right now. There's so much more that the US could do. There's so much more that ASEAN could do. Definitely more that international community at whole could do. And that's exactly why my colleagues and I in the US Advocacy Coalition for Myanmar are really pushing as much as we can to get this Burma Act of 2021 passed. It's been really slow lately. Even just to get this bill released, we've been waiting since May, and it took about 5 to 6 months just for this bill to be released a few weeks ago. So, that's just a prime example of how it really takes a lot of grassroots efforts to be pushing these huge blocks and sorry about that, huge international, just like bodies and organizations to really get up to speed to where they actually should be. And it's really frustrating, at times, like being an advocate in this space, just to see how, these huge organizations that you feel like would be doing so much are doing so little. But nonetheless, we are so grateful for all the actions that the US has taken already since the beginning of the coup. For example, there has been a lot of sanctions that have been enacted, but again, these are just trivial sanctions. Like it's just petty, it's like tiny ones, and there's definitely more that could be done. Like putting sanctions against the largest source of revenue for the military right now, which is Myanmar Oil and Gas Enterprise, MOJ. So yeah, things have been done, like, for them to be able to say that, oh yeah, we have done things, but then at the same time, it's like, no, there's a lot more you could still be doing. And these are the main things that you should be doing in order to really get at the root of these issues and, just end this impunity once and for all.
Okay, so well, one follow-up, if I may, then ASEAN recently actually disinvited Myanmar from attending the regional meeting. That is something that is a break from the ASEAN tradition, where they are usually very timid and they don't really like to do something like that. What do you make of that move, though? Is that a sign that ASEAN is feeling the international pressure, or at least they are shamed into doing the right thing?
Yeah, I would agree so. Like, it's been kind of interesting to see everyone's reactions to that, and everyone's applauding it, of course, because this is the biggest thing that ASEAN has ever done so far, even though it's not like the most radical thing that anyone could do, but for ASEAN, it's pretty radical enough, since they have been, continually having the military junta representative, Min Aung Hlaing, always being at these meetings, like just nonchalantly sitting down, being there like nothing's wrong. But yeah, it's just, I think it's a good step in the right direction, but of course, we always want more. There's so much more that we could be pushing for. And in order to really get to that place, I think what would be best is to completely just like ban Min Aung Hlaing and the rest of the military reps from even coming to any of these meetings, period, for the future. This is still a good move, though. We're always like celebrating the tiny wins. So I guess we can celebrate for now, but always still know that later on, there'll always be more to push for.
Very good. Wai Wai, I'm going to follow up on the same event as well. Right after Min Aung Hlaing was told not to come to the ASEAN meeting, his gang, I guess, the military, the State Administration Council started releasing detained political prisoners. About 4,000 of them were released. What do you make of this gesture? Does that mean that the military junta is finally feeling the pressure, and it's a sign that they are ready to negotiate, or is it just a sign that they're doing something to relieve the pressure, and then they will go back to their own way? What do you think? Unmute yourself, Wai Wai.
I do not see any signs from the military for the path of negotiations. I think the releasing prisoners, not prisoners, the the releasing the democracy activists, it's actually to ease the pressure, actually. And I think it was a big hit for them to be disinvited as country representative. And I think they felt it, and it shows that international pressure really work. And ASEAN has an important role to play in it, but knowing ASEAN as one of the weakest organization when it's come to democracy and human rights, as an institutions or member states, it is quite premature, or it is, we have to be very cautious and careful about relying on the ASEAN. There was a great move, there was a great decisions, but what I'm trying to say is we cannot completely rely on the ASEAN and stay behind and do nothing. That is not going to work, because the interest of ASEAN is not promoting democracy and human rights. It's about their institutional, well-being or economic interests, or etc. It was never about democracy, protecting and promoting democracy and human rights. But what people of Myanmar wants, Myanmar people goals is a freedom, democracy, human rights, and eliminations of this military dictatorship, right? So there is two different goals. So we cannot simply rely on the ASEAN and and sit behind. And Western countries, including the United States, has actually been relying on the ASEAN and doing nothing in terms of political actions, legal actions. And we have wasted, 5 months or even 8 months now since coup, and we've lost so many lives, and we are bringing a disaster to the country by just simply watching. And this shouldn't happen. Therefore, yes, ASEAN, even that one move was effective, but if we have a broader international pressure, more coordinated, concerted actions and sanctions and economics pressure, economic sanctions, as well as political pressure, diplomatic pressure to the legal actions. If all of this come together, then military has to step down. Right now, the here and there pressure are not being very effective, and sanctions, people are arguing that sanctions are not being effective. Yes, because it's not being coordinated or concerted. We have to come as a package, and therefore I think what Jan Jan was saying, targeting the big one like Mogi is very important, and also US to take actions, and passing the Burma Act is important for us, so that US government may take, the administration may take better actions.
All right, very good. Wait, there's a question directed at you. So if you can check it out and collect your thought, and the next round when I come back to you, maybe I'll ask you about that. For now, let me go ahead and talk to you, Nant. In the beginning of the anti-coup movement, everyone felt like this is a fight that is going to be over in maybe a couple of months. We can hold out a little bit longer, and then it'll be over, and then we will celebrate. It has been going on, unfortunately, for 8 months. How do you feel? Do you still feel hopeful that the Burmese Spring Revolution can prevail, or are you starting to worry about how long it is going to take?
For me, personally, honestly, I never think that the coup will end very shortly, because I have learned from Maung San Ka and then the other activists. They teach me this is a real long journey. So we still have to go like we still have to go. We still have lots of things to do to get our journey. So to the end of the journey. So I'm not sure, like I think some people stay hoping, oh, they're like posting on social media, they're like posting, I wish this coup will end very soon. But this is the problem. We should not think this is not just a fight or just a like small things happening in the country. This is a real long journey. I would say it's a long journey. Everyone should think it's a long journey to fight against this dictatorship, to make them like, you know, to kind of like to stop them, you know. It's a long journey. We still need to fight, and then we still have hope to like get our goals and then our beliefs and our democracy, I think.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much. I still have some of my own questions, but I think I'm going to tackle the audience questions because they are good. And one of the questions I think I can ask you, Jeanne Jeanne, it's a question by Autumn. Can you speak to the role of women? Can you speak to the role that the women have been playing in the movement? So could you perhaps talk about some of the younger Gen Z women activists who have actually become part of the NUG and who actually led the street protests in the beginning, and your own role as well?
Yeah, they were the two women that actually just came up to my mind. And again, these are not like the only women, but they are one of the prominent women, I guess, that have received recognition in Time list of 100 top 100 people this year. It's Esther Zeno Bomwo. I'm very glad to say that I'm a family friend of hers. We're relatives. And then also like, I think it's Ethan Zarman, right? So yeah, Ethan Zarman has taken a position in the NUG now as, I believe it's like the minister of like the, or minister of the women, children and youth, right? So yeah, I think it's just amazing. It's fantastic that she's been able to take on this role, you know, starting from the streets and then coming now into like this administration of bureaucracy, you know, environment. But she's, yeah, like these two women are fantastic. They're a prime example of all the other women within this movement who have been really stepping up, you know, and overcoming these kind of, you know, I guess you could say cultural setbacks that have tried to hold them back for so long. This is really a time that everyone is unleashing. The youth is unleashing their power. Women are also stepping up and becoming more outspoken, you know, as opposed to having been really shut down and silenced before. And another thing that really comes up to my mind when we talk about women is the, what's it called again? The skirts that were hung on the flagpoles, Tamang strike.
Yes,
so
yeah.
yeah, I think that was a really great example of also women stepping up in a humorous kind of way, and also like really smart, intelligent way, you know, just to raise awareness about these issues that are happening during the coup. And it was a really smart way of protest, you know, and like their just like strong resentment towards this military coup as well. And it raised a lot of eyebrows, I feel like, you know, on the ground. And also it was a nice creative way for us outside of the country to see that these women are really, they have so much resilience, you know, and they have so much like just courage to be able to do these kind of acts. So yeah, that's my words on those.
Very good. Wei, so I'll pick up that question from Nancy. You mentioned the need to hold the military accountable for it, and the US has failed to make a genocide determination of the crime committed against Rohingya. We should point out, we're talking about your people. Can you talk about this a little more and how you hope the world, including the US, can hold the military accountable for this? Do you have any comments on that?
Of course. So holding military leaders accountable is not only the right thing to do, but also the right thing for the victims and survivors. And it will actually help the entire country to be free from military dictatorship. We will be able to end a vicious cycle of military dictatorship. Once the military is held accountable. So that is the most important thing that, you know, everyone in the movement, international community, and and US government need to understand. Accountability is the key and is the right thing for the people and for the movement and for the country to be able to move forward. So now what they can do. First of all, the US government should make atrocity determination, call the crime as it is, genocide, and take actions from there. And now there is ongoing investigations and case preparations processes by the United Nations fact-finding mission. Like following the United Nations fact-finding missions investigations and report by the United Nations independent investigative mechanisms on Myanmar. So there has been tons of evidence collected and preserved and prepared for case file. So what we need is prosecution. So now, when the US make atrocity determinations and use that to push for the prosecutions and for a referral to ICC by the UN Security Council, or creating an ad hoc tribunal or court, and these prosecutions of these crimes are critical. And US has authority to do it, and they can start from, as I said, by making atrocity determinations. And US has authorities to influence over the UN and UN Security Council. If they have determinations, they can make it. Because even in the case of NUG decisions, there was at some point they had to negotiate with the China, and they were able to come across a sort of compromise or consensus, right? So in the case of genocide and international crimes, violations of this serious human rights, there are examples in the past that had referred to the International Criminal Court. And this is, the Burma case is a classic example of genocide and continuations of violations of this international serious crimes like crimes against humanity and war crimes. So we cannot just let it go. And these crimes need to be prosecuted, and it has to be done without delay. The more it's delayed, the more harm we will be bringing to the people of Burma.
Okay. One follow-up question, if I can, Wai Wai. Of course, previously the movement against the coup was a largely peaceful street protest movement. But now with the NUG's official announcement that we have to start taking defensive measures. So the People's Defense Force, the PDF, has shifted towards armed resistance. Is it a good move? Is that move raises other issues? Do you have any concerns? Is that just unavoidable? What are your thoughts, Wai Wai?
I mean, before asking about whether it's a good mood or bad mood, we have to ask, the people, everybody has to ask themselves, do they have, do they have any other options? Were they given any other options apart from, defending themselves? And I talked to many of our friends and colleagues, they said, there was no one will come and help us from this abuses, from this brutal military. So now we have to defend ourselves. They felt helpless. They felt no choices, having no choices. And that's the key for taking arms for many young people.
And that's
and even for the NUG, I think they felt pressure from the young people to declare resistance, the defensive war, and that's what it is. But this is very dangerous for the country. There will be so many consequences even after we win the revolutions. There will be so many complications around DDR processes and etc. There will be a lot of collateral damages. We're making the world is just watching to collapse the country and to see a bigger atrocity crimes across the country. And this is so unfair. You know, this criminal, this is not typical like or a regular military coup. This is the military coup by the international criminals, by the criminals generals. And they cannot rule the country. Their place is jail, their place is the court. They shouldn't be ruling the country from the first place. And that's the international community's responsibility to bring this military general to justice, because they committed the serious, heinous crimes.
That's true. And that's a tragedy, of course, to see that poets and teachers like the characters that we met in the film.
Exactly. Like Maung Songkla is our dear friends. You know, we worked together for so many years. Right. And I am heartbroken to see he is so beautiful soul, you know, a poet.
Yeah.
It's not fair for him to take on. It's not fair. You know, he didn't have choice. He felt he didn't have choice but to defend himself. So, you know, it's heartbreaking for me to see.
Right. We are about to hit the limit of our time. So I thought we will end with this a round of this suggestions. I'd like to hear from you what it is that our audience, or people in the US in particular, can do to help support Burma's to regain its political destiny. Let me start with you, Jeanne Jeanne. Do you have any thoughts and ideas, any suggestions?
Absolutely. So the U.S. Advocacy Coalition for Myanmar is weekly hosting trainings on how to call Congress and also how to lobby Congress. And it's twice a week, like Monday, Wednesdays, I think now at 8 p.m. So you can definitely go check that out. It's also included in GM4B's link tree, which Lauren just posted so kindly in the chat right now. And also on U.S. Advocacy Coalition for Myanmar's pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So yeah, you'll see like clearly, like when you go on Instagram, for example, like there's a lot of graphics that just tell you like which link to go onto to attend those meetings. So I really highly recommend for anyone, you know, who's a beginner to just attend one of these meetings, and then we'll just take it from there, you know. I highly recommend calling into Congress because this is the most effective action you can take. Above that, another ladder, you know, if you go up the ladder, there's like the highest level action that you can take as a US citizen is actually engaging with your congressional offices, speaking with them. We've been doing a lot of these meetings at least once a day, like every single day, you know, for the past few weeks. And they've been really effective. So yeah, we really just want to call, this is a call to everyone, whatever state you're in, we can definitely use your help. We have like 14 co-sponsors so far, all Democrat. So we're trying to get a Republican co-lead and co-sponsors on this as well to make it a bipartisan bill. I also want to speak to the fact that there is really strong language for Rohingya genocide determination in this bill as well. There was a separate bill in 2019 alongside a separate older version of this Burma bill that we're advocating on. And it's really nice to see that, you know, this bill is like the whole package now that is like really tying together those previous two separate bills from 2019. And it's such a great bill. It's very comprehensive, includes sanctions languages, and really is a strong, you know, piece of legislation. So if we can get as many constituents behind this as possible, you know, continue the conversations with congressional offices, the more pressure we can build, especially on Republican offices to, you know, push this out, get it into Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and then out for a floor vote, etc. So that's what I recommend.
Very good. Wai Wai, what about you? Are there things that you urge your friends and your colleagues in America to do?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to what Jan Jan has mentioned, you know, writing to your representative and, you know, support for the petition that put out by different organizations, I think there are many other ways that you can support our movement. Basically, you know, you can share news and raise awareness by using your social media, your Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you use. And also mobilize resources for the movement, like for young people, for ethnic communities, and for refugees. You know, there has been a lot of refugees in Thai border and India border now due to these military attacks. against the civilians. So these refugees need a lot of support, as well as like people, like young people who are, whether resistance with arms or continue to practice nonviolence. They, since the February 1st, they lost everything, their school, their work, everything they have. Now they need your support, even to survive, to eat, a lot of them even don't have clothes. So, you can donate, you can mobilize resources like from clothing to anything and donate, whoever you are in contact with, any group that you are in contact with or you feel comfortable to donate. So these are very, very critical, the support, like financial support, resource support, technical support. If you want to donate your time, that is welcome to, volunteer with some of the organizations to equip them to be able to do better work. You are very welcome to come and volunteer in my organizations. Women's Peace Network, we are supporting young people on the ground. My organizations also has been doing a lot of youth empowerment and leadership building trainings by providing democracy and political trainings over the past 10 years. So a lot of these alumni are involved in movement one way or another, so we are trying to support them so that they can survive at least, trying to solve some of their personal struggles. So, you are welcome to help them too. At the same time, we do a lot of advocacy and human rights documentations. Not just us, there are many other organizations working on the Myanmar. So feel free to donate your time and your skills and your, knowledge, in addition to, any other resources that you may be able to mobilize. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Nant, I wanted to bring you back and end with you before I hand the conversation back to Tim, the moderator. Now, are there things that you are doing in your own area as an activist overseas? And also, I want to tell the audience, by the way, that in the chat box, if you go take a look at the chat box, you can actually find information to contact Kirana Production that is responsible for making the film Padauk, where Nant is featured. And it is essentially her story of transformation, and also how you access the film is also, the information is available in the chat box. So please take a look at that if you haven't seen the film. So Nant, what are the things that you have been doing as an activist overseas? Unmute yourself first, Nant.
For me, I'm like donating, I'm making donation once in 2 months or something like that, as much as I can. Also sharing information on social media, having my friends like mentally when they want to talk about their problems, because this military coup affect all of our like mentally and physically. We have like lots of like depression and stress. So I'm just consulting as a consultant. I'm just helping them to like feel good, feel okay, and then I'm just like separating good news. I mean, not good news on the social media like Twitter, like Facebook, and then also sharing my opinions, and then sharing my seniors and my inspired like activists, their posts on social media. Also, of course, like stay speaking out the human rights, and then the things that I can do.
Very good. Thank you very much. I hope you continue doing this. Tim, with that, I think my role is coming to an end. So I'm going to hand over the platform back to you. And you can also answer some questions about whether the attendees can get the links that are scattered over the chat box.
Great. Well, I tried to save them. I will try my best to save them. And for everyone who registered for this evening, I will send out an email with the links listed. I'll do my darndest, and I bet Lauren Fortgang from Never Again Coalition will help me in that prospect. Kenneth, wonderful job in moderating. I want to thank all of the speakers, Wai Wai, Jan Jan, Rares, Nant, and Jeanne, we've got you on screen right now. We did have a question from somebody in the audience, and I think it's a good one to kind of bring it back around on, because this powerful film is what spurred the conversation on this evening. And I had the same question when I watched it for the first time. I watched it for the second time last night. It's even more powerful and more moving. But you were there while this was happening and this was unfolding. How did you gain access to the footage that you did? And how were you able to both do that and get it out and share it with the rest of the world?
This was actually the first time ever in decades of doing this work that I was not on the ground. So really, I think Raris can answer that better. But we reached out to Raris soon after the events began and just instinctively said, start shooting. If you're out there, start shooting. And we were following the news here, and that's where we got the inspiration about Zaw. We didn't know his name, but we knew there were these young artists, youth, who were using art as an expression of defiance. And so that was the seminal beginning of the seed that was planted. And it was extremely challenging because my colleague, Greg Butensky, who's our producer at Currana, and I were basically producing and directing with Raris every single day at nighttime, our time, which was morning for them, via Signal for security reasons. And we were very concerned both for our team, which included several people who are from Myanmar, who were not named, but were working with Raris and Nant, and as well as the protagonists, because I had a very distinct feeling from historical precedents that things would devolve inevitably into violence, which of course it did. But I think Raris can answer that a bit better. And we'd like to, whomever is on the call tonight, let folks know that the film will be released soon. Our films are all distributed through Documentary Educational Resources, which is just der.org. But right now we're in the process of unfolding a series of events like this with esteemed speakers like Wai Wai Nu and Jan Jan, both in the United States, as well as we are starting our first series that will be going across Europe, working with the Prague Human Rights Center with a colleague that Wai Wai knows well, with Igor. And we would welcome anybody who would like to spearhead organizing a screening. We probably might not be able to get Wai Wai Nu and Jan Jan for every one of those, but we could speak or find other local activists who could also join in that talk as one action point that you could all do if you wanted to take action right now. To use the films that we create are used to spark discourse like this. They're not meant to give an answer or a definitive end to something, but it's meant to open up people's hearts, through these compelling stories, to then create dialogue. And then you will take action yourself from the agency that you will receive from that story. So, and finally, I wanted to just state that Currana is actually, I will be going back to the region imminently, and we're actually in the early stages, pre-production stages to do research, because we're going to be producing a piece that's a humanitarian focus on the recently displaced IDPs, the internally displaced persons and refugees at the border. So if anybody's interested in finding more about Currana and the work that we do, please visit our website. And I just wanted to once again, Kenneth, who we consider part of our team, is just he's just a wonderful facilitator and such a thoughtful and provocative MC, and wanted to thank him for that. And Jan Jan came several films ago. We met Jan Jan in Washington, DC, when we were showing at an event. And I said to Jan Jan, you're so, lively. Why don't you speak? And she said, oh, and I said, no, come on. And she came with us to Capitol Hill, where we showed another film that was focused on the Rohingya conflict. And just to see her flourishing now in her role is so incredibly gratifying. And here's Wai Wai Nu, who I've also known for quite a long time, and her family. And, you know, the hope, when people ask about hope, the hope is in front of you on these squares. This is the hope. There is no shortage of incredibly determined and talented and tirelessly working activists and human rights defenders across Myanmar, particularly the women. You know, I want to give a shout out to. And so if you want to support them, you know, do follow up and find out more about how you can engage. And thank you so much, all of you.
Yeah.
I think if you want to, Raris, if you wanted to say something about the shooting.
Yeah, I can say very briefly. This was, you know, purely guerrilla filmmaking. It was just shooting without asking anyone for permission. Actually, the very first video, which didn't even make it in the film that I shot, was on the night of February 1st, when Nant and I just went on a walk by City Hall, which was being transformed into a army command base, and we hid behind a building and filmed the soldiers entering City Hall. From that moment on, we just had to make a decision. If we're going to shoot this, we have to take a chance and just do it. During the protest time, it wasn't a problem. There was no, in Yangon itself, there was no violence directed at the press. But once the crackdown started, then, you know, we were really just trying to blend in with the protesters. A little bit more difficult for me to do. But yeah, we didn't really never thought about, you know, asking anyone for permission, because, you know, we were in a country that didn't have a functioning government, you know, and I know we don't talk a lot about this, but at a bureaucratic level, it was just a complete black hole. And first of all, second of all, based on the previous work that we did in the region, especially in Myanmar, and especially the work with the Rohingya, you know, there was never really a time to ask for permissions, and you know, and we would have never received permission to do something like we did. You know, we just took a chance, and that was part of us leaving Myanmar. Was we had over 1 terabyte of footage that, due to internet restrictions, it was impossible to upload. So we had to make the call whether do we stay longer, you know, and look at a cost-benefit analysis of staying longer and potentially not being able to leave, and all the footage remains there, or, you know, leaving and then film. But, you know, that comes with a great sadness that you know, we had to leave the place, you know, our place of residence, and for Nant, you know, her home place and where she lived her whole life.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking the bold steps you did to make sure that you captured this, and for being able to communicate these stories to all of us. I think, especially in the US, watching what has gone on over the last, you know, year or more, seeing people that believe in the process and are willing to stake their lives for the cause and the idea of democracy, it is pretty inspiring. So thank you so very much. I want to also send my heartiest thanks to two of my favorite community partners here, Never Again Coalition and the Holocaust and Genocide Studies Project at Portland State University. We do a lot of programming together, and I am very proud when we can bring very, very important issues like this to a larger public, and hopefully give people some broader understanding and some springboard to action and moving something forward into the world. So again, all of you, thank you so much. To everyone tuning in tonight, be well and be safe. And we will be posting this to YouTube so you can rewatch it or share it with your friends. And we will hopefully see you all soon. So have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, stay safe and have a great evening.